I think he took all the joy out of the Kamala Harris campaign today. She didn't look particularly joyous doing this interview, but I thought you did a great job with a very limited amount of time. And I just want to take us behind the scenes. What was going on?
Yeah, obviously, thanks, Sean. It's great to see you. It was a little tense. We were given the time of 5 p.m. Eastern time. Obviously, my show is at 6 p.m. They wanted to tape at 5 p.m. We said we were going to tape as live. In other words, roll the tape and then just turn that around, unedited, uninterrupted, and but we had to do it before 5:15. Otherwise, we couldn't turn the whole machine around before the top of the 6 p.m. show. So we were waiting at 4:55, and then 5, and then 5:05, and then 5:10. At 5:17, the vice president walked out. So it did feel a little bit like they're icing the kicker or trying to. And originally they were talking about 25 minutes and they gave us 20 minutes. And I was fine with any time. I was really happy to get the interview. But I knew right away when we started asking questions, that this was kind of a sense that she was going to keep on talking, and that if I wanted to get through and redirect, I was going to have to interrupt. I don't particularly love to do that, but if I didn't do it, there may have been, 4 answers in the interview.
Well, I don't really think you had any choice. And for people that don't understand the time in TV, if somebody's trying to filibuster or avoiding a direct question, which you did repeatedly, or just going off and using that moment or every moment to attack her opponent, as I think she did often in this, what I did like about what you did, I'm guessing you probably had 50 questions in your arsenal that you were ready to ask, questions you would have loved to have gotten to.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
75.
But what I noticed, and I think you had to do, is, for example, you did spend a significant amount of time on immigration. Now, I played a lot of tape at the beginning of this show. She wants to decriminalize illegal immigration. She said it in her own words. She wants free housing, health care, education, sex change surgeries. She's on tape saying it. You brought up Tim Walz's position, driver's licenses, free college, a path to citizenship, amnesty. They rescinded all of the Trump and they said it proudly, all of the Trump policies that were working. Trump's chart that he loves so much shows that. That's the chart that saved his life in Butler, PA. And she just denied it and wouldn't answer it. I was more shocked at her lack of apology to people that died by these unvetted illegal immigrants that came in because of their policies.
So I studied how she's answered immigration before, and it really does go through a TikTok. She says when they first arrive in office, they put forward this bill, and it didn't go through. But she doesn't talk about the bill. It was an amnesty bill for 11 million illegal aliens inside the country over 8 years. They had control of the White House, the Senate, and the House, and yet the Democratic leadership didn't put that bill forward, and the White House really didn't even push it. But she starts there, and then she says there's this evolution. She tried to do all these things with the president, and then they had this comprehensive effort, this bipartisan bill. The bipartisan bill was voted against by 8 Democrats, and it had some major problems that conservatives didn't like. There were about 1.8 million illegal immigrants that would be let in every year, and there were all kinds of other stipulations that conservatives didn't like, so it didn't have a chance. She says that these things happened very quickly. The one bill and the other bill, there were 3.5 years in between them. And in that time, 94 executive orders were rescinded, among them catch and release and remain in Mexico. And that's why a lot of these people were released. It's, there's different numbers, but if you go by the Homeland Security Secretary, 85% of the apprehensions, it's more than 6 million people. And some of them committed heinous crimes. And that's why I wanted to go down that road at the beginning. And I spent a lot of time on it, but I thought nobody else would go into that depth, and I figured it was worth it.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the BCV broadcast. I am your host, Pastor SaikoWoods. Please do the following. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell at the bottom of this video. That way, whenever I go live or post any content for you, the viewer, you'd be one of the first to view it. Also, if you'd like to support this ministry financially, first and foremost, thank you, all of you, those of you who consistently, faithfully show your appreciation with tangible expressions of love and your financial support. We do appreciate that. It helps us to maintain and keep our channel, Love, Life, and Marriage with the Woods, and also the BCV broadcast abreast and afloat. So we do appreciate that, and it helps us to accomplish those goals as well. So we do thank you oh so much for that. But also, if you'd like to become a body lifer, body lifers are those who, outside of their support to their local fellowship, if they have one, they consider this ministry or Love, Life, and Marriage with the Woods a ministry that they would like to support on a regular basis. There is no particular amount that you need to start, and you can use whatever amount you choose to do so. We do appreciate that. You can just use the links below. I would encourage you not to use the super chat. The reason why is because YouTube, their processing of your resources that we receive, we don't receive those gifts that you give us until the following revenue cycle. So that takes about a month or so before we receive that, versus the expedited formats and fashions that we have below at the bottom of the video. You can use those, and those gifts that you give to us, we will be receiving those in the same time and expedited fashion that you submitted. And so we encourage you, if you so choose to do so, if the Lord leads you to do that, to use the support links below the bottom of the video. And we do thank you for that. Also, if you'd like to support the ministry by purchasing the BCV merchandise and gear that we have, you can go to our BCV store, and that is located below at the bottom of the video. And you can support our ministry by wearing merchandise. We definitely appreciate that as well. We thank you. Those of you who have been letting me know that you are still wearing the BCV hats and the shirts, it is really encouraging to hear a lot of you just sending me emails or a post or a text letting me know that you are wearing our merchandise, and it starts a conversation with people that you may not know. What does BCV stand for? And that conversation comes from the merchandise that we have here on our channel. So we thank you for that. Also, I want to ask for all of you to pray for those who are still affected by Hurricane Helene, and also Hurricane, what was the other one? Hurricane, not Barrow, that was ours. Hurricane Helene, and also, what was the other one? Was it with a W? No, what was the other one? What was the hurricane that hit Florida? We're praying for them as well. If y'all can put it in the chat or put it in the post on Facebook. And welcome, Facebook family. Welcome, YouTube family moderators. Thank you. We appreciate that as well. But if y'all can put it in the chat, what was it? Hurricane Milton. Thank you, Hurricane Milton. Pray for those who have been affected by Milton, been affected by Helene. People are still trying to get their lives back on track. And as you see, our government has done a very poor job in responding to the needs of the people. And it has been a community effort for those who have been affected by it. I do appreciate and thank Governor Ron DeSantis and how he and his administration there in Florida were able to restore power to the affected areas within a week's time, from what I was told and what I've seen on the news. Their infrastructure, I would probably say, is better than Texas. And it just goes to show you, when you have the right kind of leadership in play and the right kind of leadership that are focused on taking care of the needs of the people, it shows when you have natural disasters and when you have situations that are beyond our control. And this is what we see happening in our government from a city, state, and national level. And so we need to pray that God will use people that are either born again or those who have a moral compass, that are sensitive to the needs of others and their fellow man. I also want to ask for your prayers for Sister Bevelyn Beatty Williams and her husband, Ricky Williams. If you have been watching and following the news, not much on national news, but just on social media, she right now, unfortunately, has been sentenced to 3.5 years in the federal prison. And so I can't even imagine the feeling of what her and her husband and her family are experiencing. But we do pray that God will be merciful, give her the grace, that He will overshadow, that He will envelop and protect the mind of this sister, her husband, her daughter, and all those who have been affected by these wicked, unjust, and ungodly policies and laws. And this is what I want to talk about, Lord willing, throughout this broadcast tonight. I want to show you how policy matters, and wicked, godless, ungodly, unrighteous policies really matter, because when those things are put in place, it affects not just your life, but it affects the lives of our children and our children's children. This should never be just about us at this point. This should be about our families and those who are coming after us. We're talking about 40, 50 years. If God, through His grace, tarries to appear, we're not going to be here. Some of us are going to be gone within the next 50 years. If He doesn't return during that time, most of us is going to be gone home to be with Him. But nonetheless, laws that are in place affect our families. Laws that are in place affect us from the generation that have gone by. So we have to understand that this election season, this election year is very important. And I say that, and we always hear this said, this is the most important election, that we probably have ever witnessed. Well, definitely now. Definitely now, because we have a person in office who's trying to become president of the United States. And if this individual, if this woman becomes president of the United States, I believe we're going to just be seeing the beginning of the end. I pray to God that is not. I pray that those of us who are Christians, those of us who are salt and light, those of us who understand our duty and our call is to be change agents in this culture, that we do it by voting for policies, listen to me, policies that reflect biblical kingdom principles, values. That is what we are called to do. And so I put up a poll in on my YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do that. You can participate in the poll. I just asked two simple questions. Number one, are you a registered voting? And if you are you voting in the early election? My wife and I, we're going to be voting first thing tomorrow morning. First thing tomorrow morning. Soon as we get up, put our feet on the floor, put our clothes on, get in our car, we're going to our early voting polling station, and we're going to cast our vote. We will be supporting and endorsing and encouraging those of you who are saved, born again, spirit-filled, to vote for Donald J. Trump. I say that unashamedly. I say that boldly. I say that without any fear or trepidation. We're voting for Donald Trump. I hope and pray that many of you will do the same as well, too. This is not a time for us now to be cowards and say, well, my vote is between me and God. Well, okay, that sounds nice. That sounds fine. But as salt and light, we're called to let our light shine. We're called to be change agents in this wicked, godless culture. And how do we do that? We do that by restraining evil as much as possible, by enacting, by supporting, by endorsing, by promoting righteous laws, righteous policies, moral principles that help us to live peaceful and quiet lives. Amen, Christina. There is no better choice. There is none. Either you're voting for Trump or you're voting for sin. Pick this it. Seriously. There's nothing else to say about it. Either you're voting for godly principles or you're voting for godless principles. Either you're voting for righteousness or you're voting for unrighteousness. That's it. That's it. You're either voting for godly statutes or godless statutes. There's no other way of saying this. There's no other way of putting it. There's no way of trying to soft batch cookie dough this. No. If you're a Christian, your vote better be for Donald Trump and the policies that he is putting forth and trying to put forth. If we have not learned our lesson in 2020, we better learn it now. Joe Biden told us what he was going to do when he became president, if he became president. He told us what he was going to do with fracking. He told us what he was going to do with regulation. He told us. My wife and I were watching one of the videos that he had put out during COVID in 2021. He basically threatened the American people and said that America is facing a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and said that his patience is running thin with those who refuse to inject themselves with some chemical that they know they don't need and has not been tested. This was in 2021. He put out a federal mandate. He wished he could have done it to the entire country, but he put out a federal mandate requiring federal employees, mandating that they take the jab. This is what happens when you vote and support wicked, godless rulers. If you haven't learned anything about the Tuskegee experiment, if you haven't learned anything about what these people have done to our people, how they used us as lab rats in experiments in days gone by, how they treated minorities, period, or how they treated the poor in white communities, period, the less desirables, the weeds, as Margaret Sanger would call us. And what did some of you do? You took it. And not only did you take it, but you put him in office, knowing that this man told you what he was going to do. Well, his running mate, since they sent him out the pasture and put him down like a dog, their own party, the Democrat Party, says that Kamala Harris is the most radical politician in the Democrat Party. She's more further and farther left than Bernie Sanders. She's more further and farther left than AOC. And some of you are talking about voting for her. So my job, my role tonight for the next couple of hours is to convince you. By, number one, by her own receipts, her own words, but most importantly, by the revealed word of God, that Kamala Harris is the most corrupt and the most wicked politician known to man. And I'm going to prove it to you tonight by her own words and by the words of other people. And then I'm going to let you decide. My job is to give you the facts. That's it. Because once I give you, the viewer, the facts, once I give you, the viewer, the subscriber, the supporter, the brother, the sister, the neighbor, the truth, your blood is no longer on my hands, because I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. I'm giving you facts. I'm giving you historical data that is irrefutable. And only a fool would try to kick and fight against it. Only a fool would. And this is just some of the things that I'm going to be presenting tonight. But I'm going to let you see and hear by her own words, how wicked and how godless and how corrupt and how much of a chameleon she is, and how she has been playing in the face of most black people for a minute. For a minute. And then tonight, Lord willing, I'm going to wrap it up and exhort you to a call of action. That's my job. That's my role. That's my responsibility here on this channel, on this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not believe that policy matters, if you do not believe that what we do here in this world, that we are governed by laws, and some of these laws are wicked, and if you don't think that policy won't affect you, keep living. If you don't care about policy, there's going to come a time that you're going to have an epiphany and realize that, yeah, I need to start caring about policy. And tonight I'm going to show you a group of people. I'm going to show you a group of people who were somewhat like some of you. And then they started realizing, yeah, I need to start getting involved in this policy, political, civil duty thing, because now this is coming down my street. Not only is it coming down my street, this is coming in my driveway. Not only is it coming in my driveway, it's pulling in my garage. Not only is it pulling in my garage, it is walking in my house. Not only is it walking in my house, but it is in my room. It's at my table. It's in my pocketbook. It's in my family. See, it's only until it becomes personal that we take it personal. Why does it have to get to that level? Why does it have to get to that point that now some of you become involved when it's your toothache? Now you want to say, ouch, and we've been telling you, some of us have been telling you, have been shouting it from the rooftops, have been sounding the alarm, have been banging and beating the drum for years. Hey, watch out for this. This stuff is coming. We need to try to stave this stuff off. We need to try to push this stuff and keep it at bay. Why does it have to require someone's life being taken, either in your family, God forbid my family, for us to now get involved and for us now to see that this stuff is serious? God help us. God help us with this passive, with this apathetic mentality and mindset that thinks that because it's not happening to me, it ain't happening to my family, it ain't happening to my church, it's not happening at my job. That is a violation of the second greatest commandment, that we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. We're to be our brother's keeper. That if I see something, and if I know that something will potentially affect, or that it's imminent, that it will affect, I better sound the alarm. I better do everything I can to raise awareness, to help my fellow man, because I have dual citizenship. I'm a citizen of heaven, first and foremost, but I'm also a citizen of these United States of America, that God in his sovereign providence has called, has ordained, has timed that I live here in this generation, here in this time, here in this place, here in this era, to glorify, bring glory and honor to him, and to shine a light in darkness, and be the salt that changes the flavor, that changes the properties that we see here that is corrupt, to help preserve as best as I can with the gifts and with the abilities and the talents that God has called me to steward and to care for. That's my job. And not only is it my job, it's your job as well. It is your job as well. Policy matters, ladies and gentlemen. Policy matters, brothers and sisters. Make no mistake about it. Don't be deceived. Don't be fooled. Don't be pimped Don't let anybody else tell you that policy doesn't matter. I'm going to show you tonight. I'm going to show you tonight from a local level, and I'm going to show you tonight from a state level, and then ultimately from a national level, how policy matters. Okay? So let's get into it. Policy matters. It mattered in the Old Testament. It mattered in the New Testament. It mattered all throughout Scripture. We act as though that there were not policies from a political nature that was done in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, the Bible says that things that were written in earlier times were for our learning. The things that were written, whatever was written in earlier times, were for our learning. Why? So that we, you and I, the church, the body of Christ, through patience and perseverance of the scriptures, we may have hope. Through patience, perseverance, encouragement of the scriptures, we may have hope. This is why we have these stories. This is why we have these narratives. This is why we have these historical events that have happened throughout human history. To bring us hope, to teach us, to help us understand that there's nothing new under the sun. God knew it. There's nothing that surprises God, but God's allowing some of these things to happen to show you and I where our loyalty lies and where our desires are. And I understand that there are extremes. I get it. I'm not telling you to take the extreme position and act as though that America is the only place that's standing for righteousness, that we got to do everything we can to fight for America. Well, that's partly true, but not where it causes you and I to sin. That's one extreme. Yes, as kingdom citizens and as citizens of this country, God wants us to make gains. He wants us to make an influence and make an impact. He has commanded us to do that, by the way. But we don't want to have the mentality and mindset to where as we become idolaters of America, instead of being image bearers of God, who God has placed us in America. And then the other extreme is just as worse as the former extreme. We do nothing. We have this, oh, God is sovereign. Oh, if God wants it to happen, then, it's going to happen. That's not how we respond and deal with life. We don't do it when it's time to go to work. We don't do it when it's time to pay our bills. We do everything we can to make those things happen. But not understanding that these policies that we see affect how we pay our bills, affect how we work, or where we work, or if we can work. It's through policies, ladies and gentlemen. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1, the Bible says, God's judgment to Assyria, woe to those who enact evil statutes and those who constantly record unjust decisions so as to deprive the needy of justice and rob the poor of my people of their rights, so that widows may be their spoil and that they may plunder the orphans. What sorrow, NLT says, awaits the unjust judges and those who issue unfair laws. They deprive the poor of justice. They deny the rights of the needy among my people. They prey on widows and take advantage of orphans. Micah chapter 2, verse 1. Woe to those who scheme iniquity, who work out evil on their beds. When morning comes, they do it, for it is in the power of their hands. They covet fields and then seize them. Sounds like socialism, doesn't it? They covet fields and then seize them, and houses and take them away. They rob a man and his house, and a man and his inheritance. What sorrow awaits you who lie awake at night, thinking up evil plans, the NLT says. You rise at dawn and hurry to carry them out. Simply because, notice, simply because you have the power to do it. Because you have been given the authority to do it. Now, you are an abuser of authority. simply because you have the power to do it. When you want a piece of land, you find a way to seize it. You'll craft a law. You'll craft a policy. You'll create lawfare. Hello? To take someone's business away. When you want a piece of land, you find a way to seize it. You'll violate a person's Fourth Amendment rights, 14th Amendment rights. When you want someone's house, you take it by fraud and violence. You cheat a man of his property, stealing his family's inheritance. Policies matter, ladies and gentlemen. Policies matter. Just recently, ladies and gentlemen, if I may be candid with you, just recently there was in California, they call it now California. Gavin Newsom passed a law in California now saying that, hey, you don't need voter ID. As a matter of fact, not only do you not need voter ID, no one better ask you for voter ID when it's time for you to cast your vote. What? I wonder why that is. I wonder why Gavin Newsom, which, California is a Democrat stronghold. I mean, it's just Democrat through and through. Very few conservative or Republicans in positions of power there. The House and the Senate is majority Democrat. The governor, wicked Democrat. And so they passed a law. They passed a law banning local voter ID requirements. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Banning local voter ID requirements. California governor signs the law to ban local voter ID requirements. This is the September 30th issue. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill into law on Thursday that bars local governments from enacting laws to require residents to show a valid form of identification in order to vote. Now, don't y'all find it rather interesting? When they had the DNC convention, they made people produce identification in order to even enter the convention. You need an ID for pretty much everything. To get on a plane, purchase a car, buy a house, get a job. But one of the most important things that you and I have the freedom to do, they're telling you, oh no, we don't need that. I wonder why that is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not trying to give you the cheat codes on why I think the reason why Gavin Newsom and these other Democrat stronghold satanic states and cities are passing these kinds of laws during this election cycle to make it a crime to mandate that people produce identification prior to them casting their ballot. I wonder why. Again, I have my suspicions, and I don't believe my suspicions are that far off. I think all of us know why they're doing it. This is Isaiah 10, Micah 2. A law was passed. Gavin Newsom signed the bill into law on Thursday that bars local governments from enacting laws to require residents to show a valid form of identification in order to vote. The law is a direct response to a ballot initiative approved by voters in the coastal California city of Huntington Beach. In March, 53.4% of residents voted to adopt a ballot measure that requires all residents who want to cast a ballot in municipal elections to show a valid ID. Listen, over half. But the measure runs afoul of state law, and after it passed, listen, state law, is that not a policy? But the measure runs afoul. They don't like that law. They didn't like that. So what happened? California Attorney General Rob Bonta Democrat, and Secretary of State Shirley Weber, Democrat, sued the city to block officials from enforcing it. Quote, the right to freely cast your vote is the foundation of our democracy, and Huntington Beach's voter ID policy flies in the face of this principle, end quote, Bonta said in a statement at the time the lawsuit was filed. Quote, state election law already contains robust voter ID requirements with strong protections to prevent voter fraud. Yeah, right. Let me continue reading. While ensuring that every eligible voter can cast their ballot without hardship, imposing unnecessary obstacles to voter participation disproportionately burdens low-income voters, voters of color, young or early or elderly voters, and people with disabilities. You see how they tried to make this about the poor, the black, the old, the disabled? And every last one of these categories and people groups, I bet you they got a smartphone. I bet you they have some type of luxury or some type of convenience that required an ID. You can't get disability without an ID. Are y'all hearing me? You can't get disability benefits without an ID. You can't get anything pretty much in this country without a valid form of identification. But they want to act as though they're protecting, these Democrats, they want to act as though they're protecting the poor, the people of color, young people, as though getting an ID is going to take them, it's going to cause more problems and cause more trouble. It's going to be a burden to them versus them just walking into a voting booth, walking into a polling station, walking into a polling center, and just voting because, I want to vote. But yet they got millions of illegal aliens who have now entered the interior of our country. I wonder why. Well, some of them already told us why. They said the reason why we have come and crossed this border is because Joe Biden told us to. That's on record, y'all. That's on record. These illegals have said on record in the news that they're here because Joe Biden said to come. Because Joe Biden now is president. They didn't do that with Trump. When the cat's away, the mice will play. As that lawsuit went through the courts, the California Assembly passed a bill in August that was introduced earlier in the year by State Senator David Min, Democrat, to ban local governments like Huntington Beach from imposing voter ID in municipal elections. Quote, we cannot have 100% charter cities making up 100 different sets of voting rules based on fringe conspiracy theories. Y'all see this? I have repeatedly told the Huntington Beach City Council members pushing this issue that if they were to produce any evidence of widespread voter fraud, I will lead efforts to change California's voter eligibility rules. Though California's new law is now in effect, Huntington Beach has yet to respond to the lawsuit filed by Bonta and Weber in April. That's just one. That's just one corrupt law. That's just one corrupt policy. Just want you to see that. Just want you to see that. But this other one, this kind of hits close to home because this happened in 2014. Some of y'all, if you're from Houston, if you're in Texas, here in Houston, you may remember this one. Houston pastors outraged after city subpoenaed sermons over transgender bill. Y'all remember what this one was, right? Yeah, the mayor at the time, she was a lesbian mayor here, Anise Parker, and she wanted to try to enact a law, city ordinance, a city policy, a city law, saying that pastors preaching against the LGBT, the alphabet community, had to produce their sermons first for approval before they can preach it. Let me just read the quote. Houston, with its left-leaning, openly gay mayor, governing an influential conservative and evangelical base, is a city politically divided. That division has been made clear in recent days after the city subpoenaed sermons of several pastors who oppose a recently passed equal rights ordinance for gay and transgender residents. The subpoenas are an attempt by city officials to determine how the preachers instructed their congregants in their push to get the law repealed. The city subpoenas targeted sermons and speeches by 5 Houston pastors with ties to religious leaders attempting to repeal the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance, which bars businesses from discriminating against gay and transgender residents. The law passed into law by Mayor Anise Parker in May is often derided as, quote, a bathroom bill, end quote, because it allows transgender individuals to choose whether to use a male or female restroom. This summer, a group of local pastors and religious leaders began gathering signatures in an attempt to get a referendum to repeal the law on this November's ballot. But City Attorney David Feldman blocked that attempt by throwing out thousands of signatures he said didn't meet the criteria to qualify, incensing groups opposed to the rule. Local religious leaders claim Feldman illegally disqualified the referendum and have filed a suit against the city. Mayor Parker, meanwhile, has pledged not to enforce the ordinance until there is a court decision. But the move by the city to subpoena Houston's pastors, who have been vocal on the issue and have urged their congregants to support a repeal referendum, has drawn national attention. Republican Senator Ted Cruz said in a statement that the subpoenas were, quote, shocking and shameful, end quote. And Family Research Council Tony Perkins has called for the city to drop them as well. The chilling effect of government scrutiny of our pastors is unconstitutional and unconscionable, end quote. Perkins said in a statement, quote, Mayor Parker's use of her bully pulpit to silence pulpit freedom must be stopped in its tracks, end quote. Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott also issued a letter saying the city impinged on the pastor's First Amendment rights and called for the subpoena's immediate reversal. Quote, whether you intend it to be so or not, your action is a direct assault on the religious liberty guaranteed by the First Amendment, end quote, Abbott wrote to Feldman. Do you see how laws and our Constitution matter? Quote, the people of Houston and their religious leaders must be absolutely secure in their knowledge that their religious affairs are beyond the reach of the government. University of Houston law professor Peter Lenzer says the city reached too far in issuing the subpoenas. One subpoena sent to Pastor Steve Riggle, for example, asked for, quote, listen, all speeches, presentations, or sermons related to the Equal Rights Ordinance, the petition, Mayor Anise Parker, homosexuality, or gender identity, end quote. However, Lenzer says it wouldn't impinge on the pastor's First Amendment rights if the city only asks only for sermons or speeches related to the signature drive. Quote, let's assume they gave instructions to cheat, end quote, Lenzer says. Quote, that would be relevant speech, and I don't see how they would have any First Amendment protection for that, end quote. Among those fighting the city's move is the Alliance for Defending Freedom, a religious freedom advocacy nonprofit whose lawyers have filed a motion trying to quash the subpoenas. I haven't seen any indication that the city is backing down, end quote, says Eric Stanley, the group's senior legal counsel, quote, but we're hopeful that they will, end quote. We hope that they will. The only thing we can figure is that they were subpoenaed because they spoke out against the ordinance and they urged people to sign the petition. They exercised their constitutional rights to speak out, end quote. Still, Mayor Parker and City Attorney David Feldman appeared to backtrack on the subpoenas Wednesday, saying they had only recently learned of them and that outside lawyers handled the lawsuit. They argue the city is merely looking for communications from those pastors regarding the petition drive, but that the subpoena's language was inappropriate. Quote, "There's no question the wording was overly broad," end quote, Parker said in a news conference Wednesday. "But I also think there was some deliberate misinterpretation," end quote. Feldman, the city attorney, called the uproar over the wording ridiculous, but also has argued that if a pastor is speaking about political issues from the pulpit, it's not protected. Isn't that hypocrisy? You got Democrats being able to speak freely about political issues, talking about Trump or talking about the Republican Party, and they go as far as inviting Democrats like Al Sharpton. I just heard and just saw briefly Roland Martin preaching, quote unquote, if you want to call it that, preaching at a church, bashing Trump and promoting Kamala Harris. And I guarantee you that church is probably 501c3, but hey, they said it's not protected if political issues are being preached from the pulpit or being spoken over the pulpit. See, this is what happens when you file that tax exempt status. They now try to govern and regulate what you can and cannot say, but they don't do that to everyone. That's the unjust weights and measures. On Friday, the Houston Chronicle reported that the city would remove the term, quote, sermon, end quote, from the subpoenas. Mayor Parker, however, said that relevant sermons regarding the petition drive could still be gathered. Just wanted to read that to you to show you, again, that these so-called policies that a lot of us do not realize matter. It matters. It matters. They want to tell you or tell your pastor or tell people like me, if I was still pastoring to this day, what I can and cannot say. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And actually, during this time when this was done in 2014, I was pastoring. Was pastoring our home fellowship. But if you don't think this stuff matters, it definitely does matter. Now, I wanted to share it with you all because I want to kind of give a live reaction to the Brett Baier and Kamala Harris interview that we all watched and seen. And I have to give Brett Baier his props, give him his flowers. He definitely did a great job. I was kind of concerned because Brett Baier is not the kind of person that I would have expected to have been the one that the Harris campaign chose. But that's probably the reason why they did, because they considered Brett Baier probably to be rather soft and easygoing, and not one like a Sean Hannity or a Harris Faulkner, type. They weren't going to have any of those kind of people on, or Kayleigh McEnany. They were going to invite and have them to interrogate and question and interview Kamala. So they chose Brett Baier, and Brett Baier did his work. He definitely did his job. But I must say this as well, to be fair, I'm going to give Kamala Harris her props on showing up. Now, and here's the reason why. I'm going to give her her props. I'm going to give her her flowers, because she did show up. She did show up. But here's the reason why I'm giving her flowers and giving her props. Because, now the whole world knows how much of a liar and how much of a fraud she is. See, I really believe that she thought that she was going to come in and just filibuster. And she did. She did filibuster a lot. But she thought that they were going to just come in and waste time, and she intimidate Brett and not get any questions, answered in the short time that they gave this man. Which makes you kind of wonder. I don't know if you all noticed this. They gave this man 25 minutes, give or take 20 minutes. But when she was on the Breakfast Club with Charlamagne, he had an hour. The View, they had her on for about an hour. She was on Call Me, Call Me Daddy, Call Her Daddy, whatever it was, Call Her Daddy podcast. She was on there for a minute. All those friendly, she was on Howard Stern for almost an hour, give or take. Those safe spaces, right? They gave this man 20 minutes, and that's just like God. 20 minutes was all Brett needed. I know he had 75 questions that he wanted to ask and get answered, but that's okay. We've seen enough. So what I want to do tonight, I want to go through this interview, highlight some things, and share my thoughts about it, and then we'll unpack some other stuff later throughout the broadcast. But if you've seen it, you would have to say that you were pleased with it. And actually, as a result of this interview, to my knowledge, y'all correct me if I'm wrong or fact check it if you want. Donald Trump, from what I was told, I believe these polls. I don't trust these polls per se. I believe that if they don't cheat again, that Donald Trump is probably killing her in the swing states. To my knowledge, he's already winning and has already won in points and in percentages. Whether it's 1 point, 2 points, doesn't matter. But nonetheless, he is now winning in every swing state based on the polls. So much so, even the left don't even want to admit it. The Young Turks podcast, Shank, he's hating it right now because he has to publicly admit, and he has, that they're losing. That they're losing. Not only are they losing because of this interview, but they're also losing because Kamala now is linking herself up with rhinos like Liz Cheney and others, neocons, as though that's going to help, tip the scales in her favor. It's not. Nobody cares about rhinos. Nobody cares about Liz Cheney. Nobody cares about these warmongers. But Kamala thinks that that's an endorsement. Well, okay. But nonetheless, Brett Baer has her on his show. They tried to, delay him and gave him only a little bit of time to interview her, but he got the work done. So I want to go through these videos here, and I'll stop and start and comment as we go. But this is the Brett Baer Kamala Harris interview. Y'all have already seen it, but let's get it started.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Brett.
Voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right now,
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point, okay?
Now, notice how she's already going in. Me and my wife was watching them when we first saw this. She's already coming in. She's already coming in hot, right? She's already coming in hot with attitude. Come on, let's just get to the point. Yeah, that's what he's trying to do. He's asking you a question, right? But she already got a little attitude already off the rip.
The point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's a
an
rough
immigration
estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significant.
Now, don't miss that part, y'all. They immediately reversed Trump's policies. 94 to be exact. Within that first day, day one, they flipped it. Reversed almost every policy that Trump had that was bettering the people. They flipped it. But she says, they needed to get Congress to approve for them to close the border, for them to reform border security and all that. That's all lies. It's all cap.
Specifically, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate, and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising,
okay,
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
Now notice how he's being polite about this as well. Notice how he's being polite about this. He's not being rude. He's not being a butt about this. He's being polite with this woman, and yet she's acting as though he's the one that's being hostile. He's the one that's being rude with her.
Mexico at the beginning of your administration.
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the...
Finish,
yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the Senate, and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising,
okay,
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents.
That's exactly what she's doing, David. She's just filibustering and lying.
At the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
Six Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it.
And all this is scripted. She says this crap in every interview that she has. That's the same script that she says without fail all the time. And it has gone unchallenged and unchecked until now.
Because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing it.
6 Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives.
Now, how many people do you think know about these 6 Democrats? How many people who watch CNN, MSNBC, the mainstream or lamestream media know that there were 6 other Democrats that did not support the bill? Listen, when you got Bernie Sanders not agreeing with Kamala Harris on the Border Act, that's bad. Even her friend Cory Booker, he didn't support it. 6 Democrats didn't support. Conservatives didn't support it either. But these people didn't support the bill. Number one, they didn't need it to close the border. That's the first thing. They didn't need it. How do we know that? Because she admitted, Brett Baer admitted immediately they rescinded 94 policies that Trump had in place. 94. Listen to me. 94. They did it as soon as Joe Biden, after he finished taking the oath of office, they flipped and changed everything. I'm going to show you the receipts.
Had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungary, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Brett,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungary's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss. Sincerely.
Is that an apology? I forgot. How does an apology go? I forgot. How do you apologize when you know that you've done something wrong? When you were the border czar, when you were given a task, an assignment from Joe Biden to oversee the border, how do you apologize? This don't sound like an apology to me. It sounds like that sounds like that's a feeling. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm hungry. And that's I mean, what is that? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sleepy. What is that? The man said, "Are you going to offer an apology?" I feel so sorry. I feel horrible. I feel bad about what happened. Okay, that don't sound like an apology to me. I'm sorry.
But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who...
Deflection. That's deflection, y'all. That's deflection. Y'all know that. The man asked a straight question. What does she do? She tries to pivot. She tries to deflect. She tries to not answer the question.
Does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
Brett,
in all fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear. I think we all are.
But we all know that the border was 10 times better, if not 20 times better, when Trump was in office. We know that. The numbers don't lie. The only person that's lying is Kamala. Period. She would not admit that she was responsible for the deaths of these people who came into this country illegally because of, here it is, ladies and gentlemen, ungodly, unlawful policies.
That it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that that's going to get fixed, Brett.
Well,
that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question.
But
There were
that's how the system
90-plus
works.
executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because
He said 90 of them were Trump border policies. Did you let me run that back again? Because I know she was talking over old boy. Let me run that back. Did I hear Brett? Did I hear him say that 90 of them were Trump border policies? Is that what Brett said? Let's run it back just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Fixed, Brett.
Well,
that's how the system works.
That's the premise of this question.
But
There were
that's how the system
90-plus
works.
executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies.
90 of them were Trump border policies. My goodness. 94 total, but 90 of them were Trump border policies.
I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's...
They had support, Kamala, until y'all took it away, until y'all hamstrung them and tied their hands and did not allow them to do their job. And not allowing some of these Border Patrol agents to do their job cost some of these Border Patrol agents their own lives by their own hands. I'll get to that in a minute.
That's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
She don't get it. She don't get it. But I hope and pray to God that she does. That God helps her to get it. Because it's because of Kamala and Biden is why the country is in the position and situation that it's in. Again, don't tell me that policies don't matter. It does matter. And again, it's bad when you have Bill Clinton dime you out and says, yeah, if these illegal aliens were vetted, Lincoln Riley wouldn't have been killed.
You had a case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an ad about a young woman who'd been killed by an immigrant. Yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened.
America, I have a message for you. If we allow Borders R. Harris to win this election, every city, every community in this great country is going to go to hell. The untold millions of people, unvetted, who she has allowed into this country that are committing murders, rapes, robberies, burglaries, and every other crime will continue to put our country in peril. Only one man can fix that. That is Donald J. Trump. He has always stood with the men and women who protect this border, who put their lives on the line for the country. A man who knows about putting his life on the line for what is right. This November, we have a choice to make. Continue the chaos, allow the criminal cartels to control the border, to allow drugs and fentanyl across our country, or put an end to it once and for all. On behalf of the 16,000 men and women represented by the National Border Patrol Council, we strongly support and endorse Donald J. Trump for President of the United States.
Now, while she's struggling to attract the vote of black men, she's completely lost the vote of Border Patrol agents. They're threatening to quit en masse if Harris is re-elected. Have a listen to Paul Perez. He's the leader of the National Border Patrol Council, saying if Harris wins the presidency, not only are we all walking off the job, but the whole country is going to go to hell. Now, according to federal data quoted in the New York Post, since the Biden-Harris administration has been in power, Border Patrol agents have had about 10 million interactions with illegals on the southern border. 17% of Border Patrol agents have quit the job in the last 3.5 years. And the reason is pretty obvious. One of the Border Patrol agents quoted in the New York Post said that the Harris administration obviously couldn't outwardly say, don't enforce the border restrictions, but they've done everything to make our job as inefficient as possible. And so they're being hamstrung in doing their job. They're incredibly frustrated, so frustrated that for the first time in history, the agency actually hired a suicidologist, because in 2022, 15 Border Patrol agents took their own lives, presumably because of such low morale. They say that she's acting like she really cares about border security, which just rubs salt into the wound, because they know that's not happening.
So in other words, she's full of it. Basically, she's full of it. Some of these people have taken their own lives because of the pressure, because they couldn't deal with it. I mean, that's when I say this woman, when I told you at the beginning of this live that this woman is the most wicked, corrupt politician this country has seen as a politician, this woman is wicked. And listen, I haven't even given you the ironclad receipts behind that statement, but I'm about to. Just stay tuned. Just stay tuned. But let's continue on with the interview, because now if you saw the interview, you know, Brett is going to ask her about the border policy. They're going to continue on with the border policy and the decriminalization. And then she sits in this man's face and sits in our face, plays in our face, and lies and said that she is not going to decriminalize illegal immigration, illegal aliens. She said she's not going to do that. If it's wrong, it's wrong. She said she's going to follow the law. That's what she said. But let's continue, because, you know, she's telling the truth, right? That's what she says, that she's going to follow the law. And I'm going to show you, based on the receipts, this woman is full of it. Let's go.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Yo, did y'all hear that? Listen. How many of y'all got free education from the government? Just because, you know, you came over here the right way. Did they say, you know what? Since you are a natural born citizen, or since you are, you know, a lawful immigrant of this country, we're going to give you free money. We're going to give you a debit card. We're going to give you, you know, free education, free health care. We'll give it all to you. We're going to hook you up. We're going to hook you up. Anybody had that happen to them? Anybody? Yeah, I don't remember either, Proverbs. I don't think any of us recall that, because that'll be one hookup we would never forget, right? So I wonder why they're doing this to these illegals that keep coming over here. Don't answer that.
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law.
Oh, it's 5 years ago, she said. That was 5 years ago, and it's very clear that she will follow the law. What other lie are you about to tell, Kami?
I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota.
She said that's what she did before, right? Okay, let's see.
Who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very...
Look how she pauses. You see how she pauses? She pausing, hesitating, because she's not ready for these questions. And these questions were not scripted. She knows nothing about the questions that Brett was going to ask her. This is a real interview. If I don't know how many of you all remember Tim Russert. How many of y'all remember Tim Russert? This right here is up there with Tim Russert style. I think Tim Russert, if he was still alive, oh man, she would never. Oh man. NBC, CBS, ABC, they couldn't deal, because Tim Russert was on NBC's Meet the Press, I believe it was. Some of y'all can remember that. If you don't, look up Tim Russert. His interviews were brutal, but it was true. He kept it real. He kept it a whole stack. Whoever was on there, he said, "No, you said this." He would play the tape. "No, you said this. Why did you say that? Why did you say this? Why did you say that?" This is up there. Brett handled his business on this. I had to get the man his propers.
Very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
This heifer lying. This girl lying. This girl lying. Y'all want me to show y'all how I know that she's lying? Let me show you.
Raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross the border without documentation. Can we keep the hands up so we could see them? The Obama-Biden administration deported more than 3 million Americans. My question to you is, if an individual is living in the United States of America without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported? Should someone who is here without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported? Senator Harris.
Well, thank you. I will say, no, absolutely not. They should not be deported. No, absolutely not. They should not be deported. No, absolutely not. They should not be deported. And I actually, this was one of the very few issues with which I disagreed with the administration, with whom I otherwise had a great relationship and a great deal of respect. But on the secure communities issue, I was Attorney General of California. I led the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice in a state of 40 million people. And on this issue, I disagreed with my president because the policy was to allow deportation of people who, by ICE's own definition, were non-criminals. So as Attorney General and the Chief Law Officer of the state of California, I issued a directive to the sheriffs of my state that they did not have to comply with detainers. I issued a directive to the sheriffs of my state that they did not have to comply with detainers. I issued a directive to the sheriffs of my state that they did not have to comply with detainers.
Would you call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the president and I asked Congress to do. Is the first request we made: pass a bill to create a pathway to citizenship. The border is secure. We have to have a secure border, but I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals. That's correct. That is correct.
You support giving universal health care, Medicare for all, to people who are in this country illegally?
Let me just be very clear about this. I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety, public education, or public health, period.
Senator Harris, last month, more than 130,000 migrants were apprehended at the southern border. Many of them are being detained, including small children, in private detention centers in Florida and throughout our country. Most of the candidates on this stage say the conditions at these facilities are abhorrent. On January 20th, 2021, if you are president, what specifically would you do with the thousands of people who try to reach the United States every day and want a better life through asylum?
Immediately on January 20th of 2021, I will, first of all, we cannot forget our DACA recipients, and so I'm going to start there. I will immediately, by executive action, reinstate DACA status and DACA protection to those young people. I will further extend protection for deferral of deportation for their parents and for veterans, who we have so many who are undocumented and have served our country and fought for our democracy. I will also immediately put in place a meaningful process for reviewing the cases for asylum. I will release children from cages. I will get rid of the private detention centers. And I will ensure that this microphone that the President of the United States holds in her hand is used in a way that is about reflecting the values of our country, and not about locking children up, separating them from their parents. And I have to just say that we have to think about this issue in terms of real people.
The very first taxpayer-funded sex change surgery on a convicted felon was carried out in 2022. Yeah, thanks to the Harris-Biden administration. Think about that. Under Kamala Harris, your hard-earned tax dollars being spent on costly breast augmentation and other gender-altering surgeries to convicted murderers, other felons in prison, and she wants it for illegal immigrants.
Well, y'all heard that, right? She wants it for illegals. Yeah, illegal immigrants. I call them illegal aliens because really that's what they are. That's what they are. So again, she says that she would never decriminalize, illegal aliens. That's what she said, right? Okay, all right. That's what she said, but that ain't what the receipts show. But let's continue.
Campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery. For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you got to take responsibility for what happened in your administration.
Yeah.
Got to take responsibility for what happens in your administration. That's what she said, right? Isn't that interesting? Got to take responsibility for what happens in your administration. Okay.
On day one, simply with the stroke of a pen, not an act of Congress, the Harris-Biden White House, they reversed all of Donald Trump's border protections with executive orders, and then they bragged about it. And they lied about the border being secure for 3 years. But take a look at this.
So we have rescinded so many Trump immigration policies, it would take so much time to list them. We rescinded the Remain in Mexico policy. We rescinded, of course, the public charge rule that deprived vulnerable migrants from accessing certain critical life benefits. We have restored the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, the DACA program. We have rescinded so many and have restored so many that he really dismantled.
And I can think of nobody who's better qualified to do this than this is a woman who ran the second largest Attorney General's office in America after the United States Attorney General in the state of California, and has done a great deal of upholding human rights, but also fighting organized crime in the process. So it's not her full responsibility and job, but she's leading the effort, because I think the best thing to do is to put someone who, when he or she speaks, they don't have to wonder about, is that where the president is? When she speaks for me. When she speaks for me. When she speaks for me. Doesn't have to check with me. Doesn't have to check with me. Doesn't have to check with me. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she's doing. And I hope we can move this along. So, Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job, and you're smiling, but there's no one better capable of trying to organize this.
Afghanistan.
Yes.
Were you the last person in the room?
Yes.
And you feel comfortable?
I do.
Yeah, I heard that. The last person in the room, she made the tie-breaking vote for all of the policies and all of the bills and all of the laws that were passed under the Biden administration. She was the tiebreaker. She was the tiebreaker. And she said that she was comfortable with the Afghanistan withdrawal, that debacle, that fiasco. Said she was comfortable with it. Okay? And she had time at the time to say, hey, here's what I would have done differently. She was asked that question on The View. She was asked that question on Stephen Colbert. She was asked that question on other outlets. Nothing comes to mind, she said. Nothing.
The biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden, and so that would be one change in terms of. But also, I think it's important to say, with 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation.
Don't you hate that when she does that? Let me be very clear. No, we heard you here for the first time. You was talking crazy. We heard you.
Of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
So why did she say Bidenomics is working? If Bidenomics was working, then isn't that going to be the same policy and the same philosophy that you bring should you become president? God forbid. God forbid. God forbid. But remember, she said that nothing comes to mind that she would do differently. Again, the border, none of that. The illegals coming in, none of that. You have nothing that you would have done differently. Again, Afghanistan?
Afghanistan.
Yes.
Were you the last person in the room? Yes. And you feel comfortable?
I do.
Look, let's go to the rest of this, because around the 16, almost 17-minute mark, she sticks her foot in her mouth again, lying about what she said. Let's go.
On rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
Do you hear this? When I heard her say that the first time, I looked at my wife. I said, "Is she delusional?" I mean, that's something. My kids don't even talk like that anymore. I mean, that's 3-4-year-old thinking. Well, so and so been doing it. First of all, Trump and how many times? I really believe that she broke the Guinness Book of World Record mentioning Trump's name in an interview, in a response. What does that have to do with anything? The man said, "You've been in office for almost 4 years. This stuff happened under your watch. And you're trying to convince the American people that it's Trump's fault? That it's Trump, that a whole decade of leadership is Trump's fault when he's only been in office for 4 years?" Man, listen, okay, let me stop, because my head about to hurt again.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on. You and I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
Now, that was hilarious. That was hilarious, because Brett Baer low-key said, "No, you sound like a fool." I don't understand. I don't understand crazy. I don't understand crazy Kamala. I don't understand that. I don't understand nothing that you're saying. No, he said no. I don't understand what you're talking about. Tell me what you're talking about.
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But
people
you're the
have
lever of
become.
power.
But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage.
It's clear to her. It's clear to her and whoever these rhinos that she's talking about that's riding with her now.
With me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president. One, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What
God, I would never say that about the American people. And
Okay, Kamala.
what else do we know about this population, 18 through 24?
They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
That's you on tape.
That's you on tape.
Kamala, listen, if I was able to work with Brett Baer, I would have had them joints queued up and ready to go as well too. But she lies so much, you can't really keep count. You really can't keep count, and that's a team of producers and people that's working behind the scenes, pulling up those clips that Brett Baer had. This heifer said that 18 to 24-year-olds are stupid, but she said I would never say that. I would never. Oh no, I would never say that about them. Oh no, I would never say that about the American people. Absolutely not. No, just lying, y'all. No, she be lying, but hey. She lies so much, and then she's been covered and sheltered. And I listen, I thank God. Thank you, Kamala. Thank you for actually coming on, because again, this really showed the world how much of a liar. For those who are on the fence, for those who are undecided, for those who are just not sure, if you walk away from this live and leave this live stream and you still vote for this woman, you deserve whatever comes to you in judgment. Everything. We don't deserve it. I ain't voting for her. Me and mine ain't voting for her. We got sense. We got our Bible. We got the Holy Spirit. We would never vote for something like this. Never. But some of you still will. But then she has the temerity and the audacity to say that Donald Trump is the one, that Donald Trump is the one who's totally unfit in this segment. Come on, don't do this now. Let's go. Where we at? I knew it was gonna do that. Let me refresh this joint. Let me refresh it. Hold on, y'all. Let's refresh it, because I know where I'm at. Let's see. Here we go. We cooking, and now this thing wants to act up. All right, I'm gonna do it one more time. Let me refresh it again. All right,
it's good to be with you, Brett. It was no different. Thing that comes to example, my plan on who you lift up, who spends full to little and diminishing.
I'm not threatening anybody.
Showed.
Well, he was asked about this.
Talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lie.
Now, ain't this something? First of all, who you talking to? I'd be like, ma'am, relax. But notice she has a nerve to talk about the President of the United States should ought to be able to handle criticism. Yeah, that's why we're not voting for you. That's why we're not voting for you, because you can't handle it. That's why you didn't go to the Al Smith dinner. A friendly dinner amongst Catholics and Democrats. She didn't go, but Trump has pulled up to almost every event, and knowing that these people couldn't stand him, and he stood on business. He stood 10 toes down, stood on business, handled up, and wasn't letting them intimidate her. But this woman, she just tucked tail and ran. Just tucked tail and ran.
Lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of.
And all of these people that she's mentioned are rhinos and warmongers. And that's why Trump ain't dealing with them. Because he learned his lesson. It was a setup.
Of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump.
The significance of that.
Call Donald Trump He's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Man, when I saw this, like, yeah, he got you, Heifer. He got you. Stop acting like man, listen, answer the question. Don't hesitate. Answer the question. She was quick to talk about how mentally unfit Trump was, and that's a lie. But when he flipped the switch on her and said, well, wait a minute, but how long, when did you realize that Dementia Joe was declining in his cognitive abilities? Yeah. Just froze.
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
I mean, the lies this woman keeps spewing, it just unbelievable.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump is.
Look how many times she didn't mention this man's name. She's trying to deflect. She's trying to intimidate this man. He's like, no, I'm gonna hold you against the ropes.
George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden.
And oh, by the way, George Clooney, definitely Democrat, can't stand Trump. And notice he said, man, when I saw Joe Biden, yeah, this ain't the same Joe Biden I remember.
That we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
Did y'all hear the footsteps? Did y'all ever catch in the interview somebody in the background is walking? You hear those footsteps? They're trying to tell him to wrap it up. Matter of fact, they're trying to save her from a verbal beatdown. I don't know if y'all noticed that. Let me run it back a little bit. Hopefully this won't be a problem. Hopefully this won't trip. But notice, listen to the footsteps.
Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out, even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
This woman is so befuddled, and she keeps mentioning Donald Trump as a deflection because she refuses to answer the questions. But she's talking about Joe Biden as though he is not an issue, but Trump is. Joe Biden is mentally fit. He's mentally capable, mentally able to handle the business. How many times did he fall going up the stairs? Going up the stairs. 3-4 times? How many times did he fall off the bike with Secret Service detail? How many times did he fall at the ceremonies? How many times? On flat surfaces. Nobody pushed him. He didn't slip on any ice. He just fell. How many times? If they could have hid that stuff, they would have. But what they couldn't hide was this debate between him and Trump.
We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch, overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said.
There's this breaking news out of Washington now. The report into Biden's handling of classified documents has just come out. This is quite a stunning quote here. The special counsel, this is according to AP, special counsel says Joe Biden came across to investigators as well-meaning elderly man with poor memory.
That is going to be on every Republican ad until the end of this campaign, while this report seems to say that he's not going to face criminal charges and that he did breach the handling requirements of classified documents from his time as vice president. This is a damning quote.
Why did Joe Biden, in your words...
Now, before I play this one right here, before I play this Senate hearing with him and Robert Hur, who was the special prosecutor and investigator for Joe Biden, I want you to see and hear the excuse that they were giving this man on why he could not stand trial, why Joe Biden could not stand trial. Now, remember, Kamala said that Joe Biden, his mental faculties has not declined, has not diminished at all. And now we have Robert Hur, okay? We have Robert Hur now testifying and giving reasons or quote-unquote excuses on why they did not charge Joe Biden with the crime of handling documents that he did not have presidential immunity to have, being vice president. Only the president has that, not the VP, and definitely not the senator. And notice how they handle Joe Biden with kid gloves and makes excuses for him, but trying to imprison Trump, and he has presidential immunity. Let's get it.
Willfully retain and disclose classified materials. I mean, he knew the law. Been in office like 50 years. 5 decades in the United States Senate, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, 8 years as vice president. He got briefed every day as vice president. He's been in the Situation Room. In fact, you know he knew the rules because you said so on page 226. President Biden was deeply familiar with the measures taken to safeguard classified documents. And Joe Biden told us he knew the rules. Mr. Armstrong said this earlier. Joe Biden was deeply familiar with it. You're exactly right, because he told us when Jack Smith goes after President Trump, Joe Biden says, how could this happen? What data was in those documents that could compromise sources and methods? It's irresponsible. So Joe Biden knew the rules. You know he knew the rules. And Joe Biden told us he knew the rules. So, Mr. Hur, why did he break them?
Congressman, the conclusion as to exactly why the president did what he did is not one that we explicitly address in the report. The report explains my decision to the Attorney General that no criminal charges were warranted in this manner.
I think you did tell us. I think you told us, Mr. Hur. Page 231, you said this. President Biden had strong motivations. That's a key word. We're getting to motive now. President Biden had strong motivations to ignore the proper procedures for safeguarding the classified information in his notebooks. Why did he have strong motivations? Because, next word, because he decided months before leaving office to write a book. To write a book. That was his motive. He knew the rules. He broke them because he was writing a book. And you further say, and he began meeting with the ghostwriter while he was still vice president. There's the motive. Mr. Hur, how much did President Biden get paid for his book?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure if that information appears in the report.
Sure does. There's a dollar amount in there. You remember?
I don't. It may be $8 million. If that's
$8 million. Joe Biden had 8 million reasons to break the rules. Took classified information and shared it with the guy who was writing the book. That's why he did. He knew the rules, but he broke them for $8 million in a book advance. But you know what? It wasn't just the money. Joe Biden, here's this page 231, very next page. Joe Biden, in your report, Joe Biden viewed his notebooks as an irreplaceable, contemporaneous record of the most important moments of his vice presidency. He'd written this all down for the book, for the $8 million. And the next thing you say in your report is, quote, such a record would buttress his legacy as a world leader. You know what this is? It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just $8 million. It was also his ego. Pride and money is why he knowingly violated the rules. The oldest motives in the book, pride and money. You agree with that, Mr. Herr? You wrote it in your report.
That language, and it does appear in the report, and we did identify evidence supporting those assessments.
You also had another interesting statement in your report. You said Joe Biden, I want to make sure I get this right, viewed himself as a man of presidential timber. Remember that statement, Mr. Herr?
I believe that does appear in the report, at least in the executive summary.
I think this is interesting, because here's the scary part. Page 200. I said this earlier in my opening statement. Page 200, Joe Biden, this is a quote, Joe Biden risked serious damage to America's national security when he shared information with his ghostwriter. Shared it with his ghostwriter, the guy who was helping Joe Biden get $8 million. And oh, by the way, Mr. Herr, what did that ghostwriter do with the information Joe Biden shared with him on his laptop? What did he do after you were named special counsel?
Chairman, if you're referring to the audio recordings that Mr. Zwanitzer created of his conversations with
exactly
Mr. Biden,
what I'm referring to.
He slid, if I remember correctly, he slid those files into his recycle bin on his computer.
Tried to destroy the evidence, didn't he?
Correct.
The very guy who was helping Joe Biden get the $8 million, Joe Biden had used the motive for Joe Biden to disclose classified information, to retain classified information, which he definitely knew was against the law. When you get named special counsel, what's that guy do? He destroys the evidence. That's the key takeaway in my mind.
And so why Joe Biden isn't in prison? I'm sorry. Can somebody help me understand? Help me figure out. Explain to me why isn't Joe Biden under the federal prison? Why isn't he in prison right now? Why isn't he in jail? If that, I mean, again, they're trying to put Trump in jail, put him in prison for life, for exercising presidential immunity, which he has a constitutional right to do so. Why is Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, why isn't the Biden crime family not in prison right now as we speak? I just want to know, because I'm confused. But I guess we'll never find out. So let's continue on and wrap this one up, because we almost done with the last question. Who does Kamala believe is the United States' greatest or biggest threat? She's about to tell us who.
Madam Vice President, two more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the #1 threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion, that Iran posed a threat to Israel. I was there, most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself, and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that
but those
is,
proxies were getting
and
funded
my
by
commitment
Iran.
to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal.
Look at this. Look at the amounts of money in the billions that Iran has estimated. This is the money that they've made as Joe Biden has relaxed and has rescinded the policies that Trump had against Iran. Matter of fact, Trump was breaking Iran financially. I mean, broke them. Broke them. They weren't moving anything. He shut down the Iran deal. He shut it down. Like, nope. Y'all not getting a dime. What did Joe Biden do? Oh, he lifted it. And now they're trying to make nuclear weapons. Aside from the fact that $1 billion was flown in the dark of night to Iran under the Obama administration, we're not going to talk about that. But this is how much money they made every year in the billions under whose campaign? Under whose administration? Joe Biden.
That would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates
and then
in billions
it was during Donald Trump's
that
administration
go towards
that
the Iran regime.
That we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches, not to mention...
And this is sad. This woman keeps bringing up Trump's name. And this is who y'all, this is who y'all want going against Xi, Putin, Iran, Venezuela. Y'all want this woman? They laugh at this woman. And they laugh at this weak government who thinks that they're gonna use her to be a force and a show of strength in this country. Are you kidding me?
How Donald Trump has
all of this money
has treated and talked about America's military and military service people, calling them suckers and losers,
Hamas,
has diminished the
significance. He's saying that the money that's being given to Iran goes to the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Iran. Now, because of the lifting of the Iran nuclear deal, now Iran has now able to make money off of the oil reserves and out of their economy now because of Biden. So not only is the Biden administration funding Iran, which funds Hezbollah, which funds the Houthis, which are attacking Israel. Israel is sending money the United States is sending money to Israel to defend itself against Iran, while at the same time, Biden and Kamala is funding Iran by lifting the Iran nuclear deal to allow them to fund the Houthis and to fund Hezbollah and to attack Israel from Iran. If this is not treason, I don't know what else is. But this is the woman that y'all want to run and to be president. These people don't care about Israel. And how do I know that they don't care about Israel? Because why would you threaten to remove support from Israel if they don't do things your way, if they don't handle Gaza and deal with the Gaza Strip or deal with the Palestinian government or to deal with the Palestinians the way that you think they should. I don't know any other way to deal with war, because war is messy. War is hell. Nobody wants it. But that's like Israel telling the United States how to handle 9/11. When Israel's 9/11 was on October 7th. That's how insulting that is. To tell a country, to tell a nation that's being attacked by their surrounding enemies how they should defend themselves by your weak playbook. And Benjamin Netanyahu's like, nah, bro, I ain't doing that. No, I'm not following your rules like that. But they're not telling Iran, if they don't stop attacking Israel, we're going to withdraw funding from them. We're going to shut down. We're going to enact the Iran nuclear deal. We're going to shut this thing down. You're not going to get a drop of oil after we're done with you. No, they're not doing that. They're telling Israel, you better not bomb their nuclear sites. You better not bomb their oil reserves. You better not bomb them, while they're throwing rockets and bombs and missiles over to them and attacking Israel. This is how wicked this administration is. And they make excuses as though they are friends of Israel. How are you a friend of Israel, but when Benjamin Netanyahu showed up at Congress, Kamala wasn't there, and nor was Biden there. She was too busy campaigning and going to her sororities. And Biden was probably asleep drinking milk somewhere.
We're talking over each other. I apologize.
Well, I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering.
They just gave him a wave, and he had just nodded, saying, "Okay," because they're telling him rather, wrap it up. We're done. They gave this man 25 minutes. 25 minutes, but you give the Breakfast Club, you give everybody else an hour.
What should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision
and there are critics
that they feel.
Who look at what the administration did and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here.
So that's it. We don't have to hear no more. But I wanted to share one more thing, though, because remember the whole supporting same-sex surgery for illegals and supporting same-sex surgery for criminals. Well, I almost forgot about this one. Harris-era policy pays for killers' sex change. Former Attorney General boasted. This is Kamala. Let me read it. Let me go ahead and read it to you. Yeah, Kamala bragging and boasting about this. A man who killed a couple by tying them to a boat anchor and throwing them overboard 2 decades ago. This was in 2004, 2005, excuse me, when this happened. But she's boasted in this policy. This man who threw this couple overboard, tied him to a boat anchor, threw him overboard 2 decades ago, will be transferred to a women's prison thanks to California policy Vice President Kamala Harris helped implement that provides taxpayer funding to inmate sex change operations. Skylar DeLeon, that's his name now, was sentenced to death for masterminding and carrying out the gruesome 2004 murders of Thomas and Jackie Hawks. Initially sentenced to death for the crimes, DeLeon recently obtained a publicly funded sex change operation under a California policy. Ms. Harris claimed credit for implementing as California Attorney General a decade ago. I think it's outrageous, Gail Hawks, 88, told the Washington Times. This is the mother, I believe. Ms. Hawks is angry that the man who killed her daughter, 47, and son-in-law, 57, received the sex change operation. Defense attorneys said DeLeon's need for money to finance sex reassignment surgery was the motivation for the Hawks murders. the state and federal governments paid the cost of the operation and medical care. Quote, my daughter and son-in-law can't live their lives because he cut them short. And now he's living what he wanted to do in the first place. He's got his sex changed, she said. And I think Kamala should have left her nose out of it, end quote. Ms. Harris has been under fire for past statements in support of taxpayer-funded sex change surgeries for prison inmates and detained migrants. I call them illegal aliens. On Wednesday, she sidestepped a question about whether, as president, she would back federal funding for prisoners or illegal immigrants to obtain the operations. In an interview with Fox News' Brett Baird this week, she said that she would, quote, follow the law, end quote, on the matter if she is elected. In California, Ms. Harris said she helped reform state policy on this issue, paving the way for taxpayer-funded sex change operations for prisoners and setting a standard that is spread to other states. Again, policy matters. Ms. Harris bragged 5 years ago that while she was the state's attorney general, from 2011 to 2017, she led the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to establish a policy allowing inmates to undergo gender transition care, including sex change operations. In an American Civil Liberties Union questionnaire that Ms. Harris filled out while running for president in 2019, she said, quote, as Attorney General, I pushed the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to provide gender transition surgery to state inmates, end quote. In a 2019 press conference at Howard University, Ms. Harris elaborated on her role. She told the Washington Blade, an LGBTQ publication, that she, quote, worked behind the scenes to ensure that the Department of Corrections would allow transitioning inmates to receive the medical attention that they required, they needed, and deserved, end quote. But she distanced herself from the California Attorney General's office efforts in 2015 to block transgender medical surgery a male inmate was seeking. An apologetic, Ms. Harris told the Blade that she, quote, vehemently disagreed, end quote, with legal briefs advanced by her office to appeal a court ruling granting a sex change operation to the inmate. Quote, and it was an office with a lot of people who would do the work on a daily basis. And I do wish that sometimes they would have personally consulted me before they wrote the things that they wrote, end quote, Ms. Harris said. Yes, I do. This is a question she says, and it was in an office with a lot of people who would do the work on a daily basis. And do I wish that sometimes that they would have personally consulted me before they wrote the things that they wrote? Ms. Harris said, yes, I do. Defenders of Ms. Harris point out that several courts have ruled in favor of transgender inmates. The U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Illinois ordered the Federal Bureau of Prisons in 2022 to provide sex change operation for a man in prison for threatening to use a weapon of mass destruction. Policy. In 2023, a 2023 Supreme Court ruling let stand a federal appeals court decision that found people with gender dysphoria are protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. (2023) Supreme Court, y'all. That means, ladies and gentlemen, there's 9 Supreme Court justices. 9. Six, I believe, are conservative. 3 are not, if my records serve correct. And how did this pass? How did this pass? How did this pass? Why wasn't this overturned? Policy, ladies and gentlemen. The appeals court sided with a male plaintiff who was denied hormone medications and housed behind bars with men, even though he identified as a woman. Ms. Harris's defender said the change in California law allowing inmates to obtain sex change operation was part of a settlement after the prisoner sued. The vice president championed those changes and said she helped implement them, even though she has gone mostly silent on the issue now that she is the Democratic presidential nominee in a race that will depend on moderate swing state voters. On the 2019 ACLU questionnaire, Ms. Harris said she backs policies ensuring federal prisoners and detainees can obtain medically necessary care for gender transition, including surgery. Quote, transition treatment is a medical necessity, and I will direct all federal agencies responsible for providing essential medical care to deliver transition treatment, end quote, she wrote. The Harris campaign and Ms. Harris have pointed to President Trump's leadership on the issue. Mr. Trump moved to reverse some Obama-era policies favoring the rights of transgender federal prisoners, but did not eliminate the Obama administration's change, allowing prisoners to obtain sex change operations at taxpayer expense. Instead, federal prison officials during the Trump administration said that they were required to follow a statutory mandate to provide basic medical and mental health care to federal inmates. Medical care for, quote, offenders with transgender needs, end quote, they said was, quote, an urgent and impactful challenge, end quote, and treatment for those prisoners, quote, may include pharmaceutical interventions. That is, examples, cross-gender hormone therapy, hair removal, and surgery if individualized assessment indicates surgical intervention is applicable, end quote. No prisoner obtained a sex change operation while Mr. Trump was president. I'm gonna say that again. No prisoner obtained a sex change operation while Mr. Trump was president, and his administration reversed an Obama-era rule requiring prison officials to consider an offender's gender identity when assigning a prison. The Biden-Harris administration reinstated the Obama-era rule despite a lawsuit from female prisoners who said housing biological men with them resulted in threats to their physical and mental health and safety. But y'all still want to vote for this woman. The Bureau of Prisons said 1,492 transgender women, that is, men, and 769 transgender men, that's women, are in federal custody. Mr. Trump's campaign has aggressively attacked Ms. Harris on the issue and is running ads in battleground states during NFL games that highlight Ms. Harris's support of federal funding for sex change operations for prisoners and illegal aliens. During the Fox interview, Ms. Harris tied Mr. Trump to transgender surgeries for prisoners. We all know the story. We already heard the actual interview. Defenders of the California policy say such surgery require careful vetting using conservative criteria. DeLeon, 45, who is serving life without parole, told the Washington Free Beacon this week that he underwent sex reassignment surgery and breast augmentation surgery in April 2023. It's no comfort to Ms. Hawks. DeLeon and several accomplices lured her daughter and her husband out on their boat in November 2004 after pretending DeLeon and his wife were interested in purchasing it. They used a stun gun to incapacitate the couple and forced them to sign over ownership of the 55-foot yacht. Well deserved. The gang, led by DeLeon, handcuffed the couple's arms behind their backs, duct taped their eyes and mouths, tied them to the anchor, and threw them overboard. Their bodies were never recovered. They're given rights, quote, they're given rights that their victims don't have anymore. My daughter and son-in-law have no rights. They're dead. They're gone, end quote, Ms. Hawes said. Their family suffers. I just don't feel he's been treated the way he should be. And she's right. He's not being treated the way he should be treated. He should be dead. But I'm just saying. But again, what do I know, right? Because after all, Kamala, she's she's a Christian. She's she claims to be a Christian. She claims to go to a Christian church. She claims that love God and Jesus and all that kind of crap. When she was on the Breakfast Club, she was boasting and bragging in the church that she goes to, Pastor Amos, whatever his name is. Whatever his name is. This was from the Washington Times, dear. The Washington Times. It was actually written Thursday, October 17, 2024. The Washington Times. All right, so, y'all good? Well, we turning the corner a little bit. Turning the corner. I mean, Kamala was on the Breakfast Club last week, this past week, rather. And she was talking about, one of the questions that came up was, what she's going to do, the black church, how she's going to help the black church and things of that nature. And so she claims that she's a Christian. She claims that she is a Christian. Okay? Now, file that. I want you to file that. She claims that she is a Christian. That's the thing I want you to remember. If you don't remember anything else, I want you to remember the fact that she claims that she is a Christian. She panders to the church, the black church, that is. And we know that, right? Exactly, Cornelius. Yeah, that so-called audio town hall, it was definitely a disaster. And it shouldn't insult and infuriate any of us who are Christians and within the black community and within the black church. But let's go. Let's listen.
I grew up in the black church. I grew up attending 23rd Avenue Church of God in Oakland, California.
That's church.
Yes, that is church. My pastor is Amos C. Brown of Third Baptist Church in San Francisco, California.
Yes.
I have throughout my career and as vice president and recently been actively engaged in the church and church leaders, not only so we can share in fellowship, but so we can share in what we can do together that is about supporting the community, the strength of the community, the cohesion of the community. And it is my long-standing work and therefore my pledge going forward. I will always work closely with the church because I understand who our church leaders are and who the congregation is. We are talking about people who are driven by faith and the ability to see what is possible. By faith, where I was raised, and I know many of us were, understanding that our God is a loving God, that our faith propels us to act in a way that is about kindness and justice and mercy, that is about lifting one another up. Our church and my church is about saying true leadership, the measure of that is based on who you lift up. And and then he's selling $60 Bibles or tennis shoes and trying to play people as though that makes him more understanding of the black community. Come on.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you for the correction.
Thank you, Reverend.
And God is good.
Every day, all the time.
There you go. I had to make sure you get that right. How does she get that right? How many of y'all hear people say that when we know how to do that? God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good. We don't say it every day. But see, again, it's the playing in the face of black people, of black folk. And they've been doing it for so long. Why change it? But now remember, Kamala is a Christian. So if she's a Christian, I'm just asking, if she's a Christian, what makes her a Christian if she believes and follows the teaching that she follows?
To really be true to the teachings of Christ, one must think of our faith as a verb. Jesus is telling us then about, yes, we must love thy neighbor, but let's define and be clear about who is our neighbor.
And so when we think about justice, let's also remember all the prophets spoke about justice. They spoke about it, Proverbs 31:9. Speak up for the poor and the helpless and see that they get justice.
And when Congress passes a law to restore reproductive freedoms, as President of the United States, I will sign it into law.
3 bills signed into Minnesota law.
One is long, they're all long overdue.
One of them protects people seeking or providing abortions.
We are witnessing a full-on attack against hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. Take reproductive freedom. Well, Tim and I have a message for Trump and others who want to turn back the clock on our fundamental freedoms. We're not going back. We're not going back. And so let me say about Tim Walz, he has shown up to stand against these attacks long before he stood on the stage with me. After Roe was overturned, he was the first governor in the country to sign a new law that enshrined reproductive freedom as a fundamental right. You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street. Come on.
When I panned over to the crowd and to her speaking, and I caught something I wasn't expecting. Check it out.
Not a lot of energy here, but everyone just cheered and screamed for killing babies. So that was disappointing. Anyway, here she is.
Did you hear that? Some guy in the crowd shouted, "Jesus is Lord." And Kamala said, "I think you're at the wrong rally." And then she said, "Try the smaller one down the street." Everyone laughed and laughed and cheered, but I was at that rally. There were almost 7,000 people at it. Today they said there were 2,500. Nobody waiting. Open spaces. I wanted everyone who's a believer to hear that for themselves.
That you see now, you left up, you know that, don't you?
Yeah, she definitely messed up. Now here's why I said. Remember, I had mentioned to y'all. I made that bold, indicative statement and said that Kamala Harris is the most wicked, corrupt, godless Jezebel politician known in this generation, known to man. You know why I said that? Because in 2012, I believe it was around Obama's second term running for office and his rally. I believe it was in 2012. He had a heckler at his rally, and they said the same thing too. They said Jesus is Lord. Now, we all know Obama ain't saved. We all know Obama ain't a Christian. We all know Obama is no more saved than Satan's sister is. But it's a very strong indictment when Obama acknowledges Jesus as Lord, but Kamala doesn't.
I want to
Christian God is the one and only true living God, the creator of heaven and the universe. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Jesus Christ is the Son of God.
I agree. First of all, I agree Jesus Christ is the Lord. I believe in that. I agree Jesus Christ is the Lord. I believe in that. I agree Jesus Christ is the Lord. I believe in that.
Now, of course, just saying it doesn't mean anything if it's not shown in your life, right? But it's just the fact that Obama wasn't that stupid and crazy like Kamala to mock the lordship of Christ. And do y'all notice that they don't do this with Muslims? No, I don't hear anybody mocking Muslims in their rallies, especially not Democrats. They don't mock Muslims. They don't mock them. They don't mock Allah. Because they're not dumb. Again, they do it to us because they know Christians ain't gonna do much or say much or respond to much. So, they'll mock our Savior, they'll mock our Lord, they'll do all of that. But you don't find Kamala and them mocking Islam. Nope, nope. But my point is that it's one thing, of course, to when you say it versus show it, but the fact that Obama did. The fact that Obama, he had enough sense to not mock this man and make any snide, slick statements and dissing Christianity the way that Kamala did. But was something I found also interesting in preparing for this live. Even though Obama is not a Christian, his understanding of what it means to be a Christian was pretty. It was pretty interesting.
I'm a Christian by choice. The precepts of Jesus Christ spoke to me in terms of the kind of life that I would want to lead. And I think also understanding that, that Jesus Christ dying for my sins spoke to the humility we all have to have as human beings, that we're sinful and we're flawed and we make mistakes, and that we achieve salvation through the grace of God.
Yeah, you hear that? I mean, it's again, saying it, showing it are two different things, and we know that Obama's policies give evidence and contradict what he said, which came out of his mouth, and he wasn't fooling anybody. Anybody that knows what genuine salvation and the effects of the gospel are to be knows that Obama was playing in our face too, and he used it to his advantage.
No matter how sweet the honey flows from his mouth, the foul odor of his actions are what reveal what kind of a man he really is. Ooh. Life for him adds, quote, I wish with all of my heart this were true, but it says in God's word, we will know them by their fruit. What is the fruit that we see? It is opposite the Christian faith. And then Deb says, quote, Obama believes that there are many ways to God. He is deceived and is trying to deceive others.
Now, here's my question I want to ask those of you who are still supporting and talking about voting for Kamala Harris. Obama was more slick and smooth with it. His personality was and his charisma was on point. That's why he got almost 100% of the black vote, 92 to 95%, I believe, maybe a little bit, slightly higher. But it was in the upper 90s of the black vote that he had, because people thought and believed that Barack Obama was black, although his mom was white and his daddy was black from a color standpoint. And he used that to his advantage, although his policies did nothing for the black community at all. He supported and pushed the agenda of the alphabet community, but black folk didn't care. But knowing that his policies did not align with biblical principles, and knowing what he endorsed gave evidence that he was not truly a Christian, we see that, right? You would think that with Kamala, her policies fly directly in the face of everything that we know that is godly, that is of biblical worldviews and values and principles, but yet you're still voting for her, knowing that her policies are straight more radical than Obama's was. So I have to ask you, what's going on with your discernment? Are you really, really saved? That is my question. But let's continue, because we're almost done. So remember in the Breakfast Club interview, when a person is biased, you can pick it up. I mean, that wasn't an interview at all. That was another softball, slow pitch, under the hand interview, alley-oop, lob, all of that Charlemagne hosted and handled for Kamala, and was setting up the questions and everything. So much so that Charlemagne He threw the griot under the bus in their interview with Kamala in reference to reparations. And if you remember the interview, he set it up perfectly. He said there's an interview out there saying that you're not gonna do anything for black people, but it was taken out of context. So he already just dunked and just dissed these people. And if I were the griot, I'll be responding to that clown. But he set it up, gave Kamala a slow pitch, and once again, in like fashion, she lied.
Have you seen the clip, Madam Vice President, from the griot? It's a clip that's kind of out of context, and it says that you won't do anything specifically for black people. Have you seen that? Have you?
I've not seen that.
Well, it's a clip that has you saying that you're not going to do anything specifically for black people.
Well, that's just not true.
Hold up.
What? Do you support reparations for black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit black children, black families, black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No. About that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No. Because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right?
That's you on tape.
That's you on tape.
So how was it taken out of context, ladies and gentlemen? Maybe somebody can ask that question to Charlamagne, because we know, he watches my videos and maybe he'll respond. But how was this interview that the griot had with Kamala Harris, asking the question about reparations, whether you agree with it or not ain't the point, how she responded to it. And then the woman circled back and redirected and said, so there is no plan that you have that is specifically, for black people. She clearly said and repeated the question so that there were no mistakes. There was no misunderstanding. And what did Kamala say? What did she say? Well, I'm not gonna make a policy that's going to benefit black people. No. But you did it for the Asian community. You did it for the LGBT. You gave them millions, if not billions of dollars. Okay. All right. Just saying. And y'all wonder why the black community keeps getting peed on and played on. Because they know they can do it and get away with it. That's why they keep bringing these illegals over here, because now they're the new Negroes. They're replacing, listen, they're replacing and displacing the black community. And you're letting them do it because you've been letting them do it for over 60 years. So they don't see you as important. They see you as a joke. And then when you have the coons come alongside, like Ricky Smiley and Jamal Bryant and, D.L. Hughley and others, give them a platform and protect them and cover for them, then yeah, you get what you get. Now, I'm turning the corner a little bit, and I want to shift gears because I want to close this part out with why I am encouraging believers. If you have not participated in the poll question, please do that. Please do that. And just ask yourself or answer the question: are you a registered voter? If you are you going to vote early? I would encourage you to do that. My wife and I will be doing that first thing tomorrow morning. We're getting up, and we're gonna make it our business to do so. Our daughter is going to be going with us, and this is her first time voting, so we're excited for her as well too. So, but anyway, remember the debate that you want to call it that. Remember the debate that Trump had with Kamala Harris, and Lindsey Davis was also running cover along with David Muir. So it was really a 3-on-1, 3 against 1 debate. Not only did Trump have to debate Kamala, he had to debate David Muir, he had to debate Lindsey Davis. And they were they were fact checking Trump and disproving his stuff and his comments and his statements and his position. And what Trump was saying was true. I want to play one particular clip because, again, in preparation for this, the Lord allowed me to remember a video and actually a previous debate that Trump had with Joe Biden regarding the same topic and regarding the same issue on abortion. And if you don't get pissed off at this, I don't know what else is going to piss you off, because it was right here in our face, and they did it, and they did it so much to where, yeah, you're not going to do nothing about it. We're the mainstream media. What you going to do? What are you going to do? We can say and contradict somebody that's on our own side and make what they said to be untrue, but it don't matter because we're all in it together to get and to attack Trump. Not lying. Let you listen to it for yourself.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
The lies! There you go, this bitch.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
Did you hear that? Do I need to play that back again for y'all? Did you hear what Lindsey Davis said? This is when Trump was responding to Kamala Harris regarding the full-term abortion ban. And he was talking about the former governor, I believe in West Virginia, who had approved abortions all the way up to the 9th month, even after the baby is born. If it's a botched abortion, then they would decide whether or not they're going to let the baby live or let the baby die. And Lindsey Davis, in that debate, fact-checked Trump and said that there is no state that allows full-term abortion in our country. And what did Dana Bash say? 7 states have full-term abortion ban. Have full-term abortions. 7 states allow full-term abortions. But Lindsey Davis said from ABC that there is no state that allows that. And Dana Bash said, yeah, there is. Yeah, there's 7 of them. Let me play it back again.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
The lies! There you go, this bitch.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
Did y'all see that? I don't know if y'all remember that. How many of y'all remember that? Do y'all see the blatant lie, mind screwing that they did to the American people, to the public? They try to make Trump act and sound like he's a fool. He don't know what he's talking about. And everything Trump said about those facts were true. Everything. And this is why I go hard for people like Trump. When people like Trump is standing on business and standing on biblical truth, or just standing up for what is right. If you're doing that, I got you as much as I possibly can with what God has given me as a platform. But there's something else I want to share with you all, because I had talked about it before, but this is something I did not realize. I did a segment on some of the things that Trump has done for people. I mean, he's a philanthropist, and he's a very generous man. Contrary to what the public now are saying about him, everybody loved him some Trump back in the day. Everybody did. From movies to music, sports, whatever. He was the man. He was that guy. And still to this day, some people still standing 10 toes down with him, but y'all see what the media's doing with him. And making it sound like he's a demon and he's wicked and he's, all those things. And again, if Trump is not saved, right? If he's not saved, he's putting a lot of us as Christians to shame with how he treats people and how he tries to help people. And I'm just talking about from just a human standpoint. That's all. But I was watching an interview that he had with a comedian named Tyrus on I think it was on Outkick, I think it is. But anyway, he had a recent interview with Tyrus. And one of the things that he mentioned, that he brought up, that Tyrus brought up, who was hosting the interview, he brought up to President Trump. He said, you don't talk about the things that you've done for people when all these people are out here lying on you, dragging you, misappropriating and maligning and mischaracterizing your name. He said, you should be saying some of these things in defense of your character. You know what this man said? He said, I don't like to bring attention to myself about the things I do with people. Man, what? I gotta let you see it for yourself, because me talking about it versus you hearing, because some of you may not have even seen it, but you need to check this out.
Nelson Mandela and 80 of his constituents were trying to come to the United States.
Yeah.
The United States government wasn't helping him. No one was helping him. You chartered a 727 plane for their entire trip.
Yeah.
Did y'all know that? I did not know that he did that for Nelson Mandela. I did not know that. I was blown away, yo. I was blown away. A 727 plane for Nelson Mandela and his people to come over to America. And the United States didn't lift a finger to help, but Trump did. Let's go.
How is somebody, and that's crazy because you can talk about anything, and why is it hard for you to talk about the things you've done? It runs in your family. Your father helped build a synagogue. I mean, why do we not know those things?
It's something that I've never, I love doing it. I don't need praise for it. I don't.
Do you hear this? Do you hear this? Listen, whether Trump knows this or not, he's doing Proverbs 27 verse 2 right now. That's what he's doing. He is applying a biblical principle to not drawing attention to himself and seeking praise for himself by helping people. Now listen, say what you want to say about the man. But I'm just like, yo, this is just, I was blown. I was blown. Because I did the Liz Croykin article, and hers was great. But it's probably a lot of other instances that he has done things with people that have not been made known to the public that I believe, just like case in point, and I'll let the video play in a minute. Just like if people would have known about Hunter's laptop during the 2020 election, people said had they had known that the Hunter Biden laptop was true, that the story behind that whole scandal was true, they would not have voted for Biden. Now reverse that, flip that. If the mainstream media were honest and forthright and people of integrity, if they were to treat Trump the way that they did before he decided to become a Republican and decided to become president, if they would have given him the same airtime, the same energy, the same love, and all of that, like they did before when they didn't think that he was serious about this, and they gave him all this airtime and all this press, and he was on all these news outlets, CNN, MSNBC. He was on there with Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough. They was loving him. They was loving him. If they were to release this stuff about all the things that he did for people, even the people that hate him. When I was watching that Al Smith dinner, he's sitting right next to Chuck Schumer, who was trying to destroy him. Behind him, he got Letitia James, who's trying to throw him in prison. He's surrounded by enemies, and he's still handling business. And all I'm saying is, whether he knows it or not, his response to what Tyrus has said, man, that's biblical. Let's go.
We all like a certain level of praise, but I've never, I just like helping people. I help a lot of people, and I enjoy doing it, and I never talk about it. It's nice that you bring it up. I also think it's not a narrative that the press likes talking about, for me.
But I think it would help a lot of the American people who have been misled, I myself included. Now, listen, I'm voting for you now because of the man you are, not just because of the policies, because not every American will get the opportunity that I had to saw who you were backstage. And that's why I have this list. I mean, I have testimonials. We can't go through all of them because of time.
I want to see them.
Now, this was I had to dig deep.
I like that.
You donated $100,000 to raise dogs. You're not even a dog guy. Yeah. Explain that.
Well, that's Lara. So I have the wife of Eric, and she's a terrific person. You know, she's actually now a very big an important person in getting elected in the Republican Party. Comes from North Carolina. She loves the dogs, and I did that in her honor, actually. And you know, if you listen to her, boy, dogs are treated very badly. They're, you know, some evil people having to do even with dogs. So I did that for my daughter-in-law. Yeah, more so than me. I don't know that much about dogs, but I want to take care of them. And I had an opportunity. You know, as president, you can do a lot of things. I did a lot. The size of the kennels, the size of the cage. You know, there's like cages that they're in. And it's terrible. It's like you have no room, no nothing. And she came in with a whole group of people. These are people that really fight hard for dogs. I mean, you have people that fight. And she's a good person, so I did it for her.
I have hundreds of employees who have said things like, you've paid medical bills, you paid mortgages, rents, you've helped get family members. There's one story in here where a brother came in with a business plan, nobody would hear him. You gave him 10 minutes, you shook his hand, and you cut him a check. Yeah. Why is it so hard for you and even your team? I'm a little upset. These are things that I think the American people need to know. And I get it, you're humble because you're a father first.
Yeah.
And a grandfather. And that's something, again, one thing we need in this country is we need a father figure again. We need husbands and boyfriends and young men we need to see that fathers are capable of great things, because we've dealt with it, especially in the last 3.5 years, a complete dismemberment of what it is to be a man. We're under attack for everything.
Listen, if Donald Trump is a racist, he's doing a piss poor job, y'all. He's doing a very bad, horrible, piss poor job. His racism is so subpar. He must have audited the racism class, because he didn't graduate on that one. I'm sorry. Proverbs chapter 27 verse 2. The Bible says, "Let another praise you and not your own mouth, a stranger and not your own lips." Let someone else praise you, not your own mouth. A stranger and not your own lips. Chapter 25, verse 27, same book. It is not good to eat much honey, nor is it glory to search out one's own glory. It is not good to seek honors for yourself. Listen, I didn't know about Nelson Mandela. I knew about some of those other things, but I did not know about that. Didn't know about it at all. Didn't know about that at all. And so that just really floored me. I was like, man, what? Wow. Now, I want to where is this one at? I need to put this one in here, because this one you need to see. So bear with me. I thought I had it in here. Yes, I do. Okay, here it is. So I want to I want to appeal to those of you who decided not to vote. I'm not trying to be your conscience, but as a Christian, I believe that this next video that I'm about to play, I believe it should speak to those of you who have decided not to be involved or to be engaged or to participate in this election cycle. I believe it's because of misinformation. I believe it's because we don't have a biblical worldview regarding this issue, regarding how we should be a salt and light in this world. I believe in watching and seeing what has gone on in our world. If you have just come on and to this part of the video, you need to go back and watch the beginning of it, because I just showed you how policies affect us as a church, affect us as Christians, as us as individuals, period. But for this group of people I'm about to show you in this video, for this group of people in this video to decide to now become active in the political process, knowing that their culture and their beliefs, they really don't feel or believe that they should be involved or participate in the political process in this political sphere because of how they were treated before as a people group. But now they're realizing that, hey, no, I gotta strap up. I gotta strap up. I gotta lace up. I gotta handle up, because this thing is now hit home for me. If these people can now become involved in the political process, because now they're seeing that their freedoms and their beliefs and their religious liberties and rights are being now impeded and imposed upon and violated, then what should this say about us? That's my concern, and that's my question. So I'm gonna play this video, come back on the other side of it. I may comment here and there in between, but I believe this is an indictment. I believe this is an indictment for those of us who are Christian salt and light, and we refuse to engage in this situation now, because this is not about us anymore, and these people get it.
The Amish in Pennsylvania, they're registering and they're voting in huge numbers now. And every single one of them is voting for Donald J. Trump. It used to be super hard to get the Amish to sign up to vote, but it's a lot easier now with the way the country's been going, with Kamala and Joe in office. What are the values that the Conservative Party has, Trump has, that the Amish community identifies with?
Well, we're pro-life. I can say we're pro-freedom. To be over-regulated is just nuts. I mean, you go back in the history of George Washington and through the different presidencies and the Bill of Rights, all those were based on freedom. They weren't based on over-regulation. The politicians didn't make a career out of it. It was almost a disservice to be a politician. Today we are a politician because we make wealth off of it. Trump didn't keep $1 when he was president. How about all these other politicians?
Let me stop there for a second. Did y'all remember that? I forgot what the amount presidents get now. I think it's over 400-some thousand. It's been a minute since I realized, but I know it's over $400-some thousand to my recollection. But whatever it is, I know it's about at least 400. Trump did not take a salary. In fact, by law, he had to at least take $1. And so with the rest of the money, he donated it. I don't know if y'all know that. So thank you, David. So it is a $400,000 salary, right? So by law, he has to at least take $1. And so with the rest of the $399,999.99, he donated it, gave it to charity. But he's the crook. He's the one that's dangerous. He's the one that's a threat to democracy. Let me continue on.
How about they go 4 years without taking $1? Our values, conservative values, and the Amish values line up very close. We don't agree on everything, but we agree on most things. The liberal values are absolutely crazy. Seriously, anybody is deciding if they want to vote for a Democrat or Republican, I got a simple question for you. Which is better, California or Florida?
Come on.
New York or Texas?
Right.
Like, seriously, if you don't know who you should vote for, think about the policy. Think about the states that are run by Democrats. Think about the states that are run by Republicans. Very simple choice. The past 4 years, I think most people can say that it looked like they were making more money. And at the end of the day, they were making less. You may get a bigger paycheck, but the cost of living is ridiculous. And I can put it this way, Kamala says she's going to give the $25,000 down for a first-time home buyer. That'll never happen. Anybody that thinks that'll happen is a fool. It's the same as the free college. You think about, how about our homes? How about the ones we purchased? Excuse me. Where's my $25,000? And that's why it'll never happen. For anybody that believes that'll happen, it will never happen, I guarantee it. And if it would happen, it would inflate the home prices even more. It's crazy. If anybody thinks that she'll turn things around, she was there for 3.5 years. She had every opportunity. She's making all these promises, but the question is, why wait? Why are we waiting? She's been talking about the border, how Trump turned down the border policy that they've been trying to pass. Why'd she wait for 3 years to try to promote a policy? Why not right away? Why did she remove some of the policies Trump had in place? Seriously, this is kind of craziness we have. There's too many people in America who can't think for themselves. And they believe like CNN, ABC, MSNBC, things like that. You got to look. You got to do your research.
Many people ask why they're voting for Trump, and they say read the Bible and you'll understand why.
So the Amish historically, deep rooted in their ancestry, is the government, the state killed their people in the 1500s over in Europe, Switzerland primarily. So when they immigrated to America, they brought with them this distrust of the state.
Do y'all hear that? This is why historically they have not gotten involved in politics, because of what the state did to them when they were in Europe. And they carry that mentality here in the United States. And all they want to be is left alone. Don't bother me. I won't bother you. But now the game has changed.
And so that's part of the resistance to getting involved in civics, like elections and so forth. There's also this non-resistance pacifism woven in there as well. And so when you see the Amish community starting to get engaged in civics like voting, something as simple as voting, it means that the country has turned to a point, or the culture has pushed far enough left that they're like becoming engaged, because first of all, they care more about their community than their country. It sounds crazy, but they do, because they are Americans, but they also care about their community. So if they feel like their rights to gathering as a community, as a church, if they see that potentially becoming violated, you will see some folks rise up and be willing to engage in voting. 99%, if not 100%, vote very conservative.
What is it about the conservative values that the Amish identify with the most?
I would say limited government. They want to be left alone. We want to farm, grow our own food, and we want to sell it. That kind of thing. Too many regulations it's antithetical to freedom. And so the Amish are a very freedom-loving people when it comes to commerce, farming, raising their families. They have their own schools. They fought for their own schools in the 60s and they won. Some of them went to prison because they didn't send their kids to public schools. That was a huge victory for us now, because many families who are homeschooling do so because of the Amish resistance to sending their kids to public school.
Do you hear that? We reap the benefits for people who fought and who have sacrificed for the things that we take for granted now. I want us to understand this. I really want us to understand what these people are saying now. At one time, and we know when you talk about the Amish, they live simple, basic lives. They don't want to be bothered. And like you said, the pacifist approach, the non-resistance approach to how they deal with situations, they know they can't do that anymore, because now it's coming down their street. It's coming down their alley. It's coming into their fields. It's coming into their businesses. It's coming to their livelihood. And now they're speaking out.
And now we see the decay of our moral fabric in our public schools are indoctrinating our kids.
And you guys, the small business owners, just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
And not regulated and told that they have to hire a certain number of people and do their business a certain way. And that all goes along with how the conservatives feel.
Very much so. I think that's one of the intersections between American conservatism and the Amish community. We want to be left alone. We want to raise our families. We want to send them to school. We want to take them to church. And we want to give them our values. And so, and stop regulating us.
I mean, did you hear what they're saying? That's what we want. How many of you want the same thing that this man just said? That's all we want. Leave us alone. Limited to small government. We don't need you in our affairs in so much and in so far as we're not violating God's law and laws that are in alignment with God's word. All this other stuff, look, man, y'all stay on y'all side, we stay on our side, we good. But now you're trying to tell us how we need to run our businesses and all that kind of stuff. Listen, Trump did away with a lot of these regulations. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a businessman, if you want to get into business, then why would anybody want to be under an administration that tells you got to go through all this bureaucratic red tape to exercise and to use the skills and the gifts and the abilities that God has given to you? Why do I have to have regulations to cut hair? Why? Why I got to go through all these regulations to get to cut somebody's hair? Why I got to go to your school to cut hair? If I know how to do it and you like my work, fine. Little stuff like that. Why I got to have regulations to have a bike shop or whatever the case might be? Why? And all these taxes. Thank God we don't have city or state tax here in Texas. We don't have it here. Because of what? Because of policy. You need 3/4 of the vote in order to change that around. And Texans are saying, nope, that ain't gonna change no time soon, if ever.
We keep getting more regulation.
I meant to say 2/3, not 3/4. 2/3 America. 2/3 vote. 2/3 vote.
And it hurts our bottom line. We're losing farmers. We're losing farmers every year in the Amish community. My father-in-law stopped milking cows 2 years ago. He couldn't make a profit anymore.
If there was one thing about the Kamala Harris that you don't like the most, what would it be?
She pushes for abortion. That's one thing we don't believe in. And yeah, higher taxes and inflation, we just can't. It's not going to hold out. It's not going to work. So we can't make less money and pay more.
That's right.
The majority of the country wants him. I think he's a great leader. We may not all agree on the personality, but if you want Kamala, if you want to take somebody to prom, she's the one. But I want a business leader to run our country. I don't live on vibes. Vibes doesn't save our country. Vibes doesn't take our country in the right direction. It's all about policy, all about substance. We don't hear anything from her. She has the same train wreck details and memorized speech every time you ask her a question. But I think people are ready to have him back in again. We have 4 years of disaster.
Yeah, I would agree. I totally would agree. Now, again, listening to these people who have distanced themselves from politics, from fulfilling their civic duty or whatever the case might be, right? They've distanced themselves from this stuff. But now they're seeing how this is affected and are affecting their livelihood, their communities. Have we forgot about COVID? Huh? Some of you who are watching this live stream right now, you forgot what happened to us 4 years ago. You forgot that quick. You forgot what Joe Biden threatened to do if he could have done it. You forgot the hell that he and his administration put these doctors who were standing for the rights of not just themselves, but for their patients, like Dr. Simone Gold and others. Some people lost their licenses. which is really their livelihood, who just prior to this pandemic, prior to that, the government had a problem with their expertise, with their work, with their opinions regarding medicine and things of that nature. But because they want you to take the Fauci ouchie, they want you to take that, and since he made a killing off of it, literally, and so did Bill and Melinda Gates and all others who were down with this whole type of plot. These same people threatened to take the freedoms and rights from some of you away, and some of them have, to where you couldn't go to work anymore. My wife and I were talking about that this morning. It was akin to taking the mark of the beast. You couldn't go in certain stores, you couldn't work, you couldn't go here, do that, unless you either had the mask. We know how effective that was. The irony and hypocrisy of that whole situation was they were shutting down churches but keeping abortion clinics open. They shut you down from peacefully assembling to worship, but had no problem letting Black Lives Matter and letting the riots during the Summer of Love run amok. You didn't have the right, the bodily autonomy to decide what you want to have to go in your body, but they can tell you that you have the right to kill what's in your body. I'm just trying to understand. Have we forgotten that was a policy 4 years ago? Did we forget? Have some of y'all have gotten amnesia that quick, this fast, that you forgot that you had strip clubs and liquor stores and abortuaries wide open like a hole on payday? But they wanted to shut down the church. Not only wanted to shut down the church, but they want you to shut your mouth. Because if you said anything on a platform, they will deplatform you or demonetize you. I've had my channel stricken for content that I put up that was based on fact. And what did they do? What did they call it? Medical misinformation. Policies, ladies and gentlemen. Policies. That's all I'm talking about. What I'm saying to all of us, those of us who are Christians, those of us who represent the kingdom of God, those of us who are salt and light, how long are you going to let this woman and this particular Democrat Party play in your face? How long? Has your antenna been up at all? Do you not see the game that's being played against you? Again, these people are insulting those of us. Let me talk to my black brothers according to the flesh. Let me talk to my brothers for a second. How long you gonna let this woman keep dissing you? How long you gonna let this man, this mixed man, Obama? How long you gonna let him insult you and play in your face and mind screw you and question your manhood and your blackness? How long? Was it not enough when Joe Biden said, if you don't know whether or not you for me or for Trump, you ain't black? And I guess you proved your blackness by voting for a racist who's really racist versus a man who's not racist at all. Nobody had a problem with him when he supported Jesse Jackson's campaign, financed it. Nobody had a problem when he was taking pictures with Al Sharpton, Oprah, Rosa Parks, Muhammad Ali. Even Muhammad Ali's ex-wife is standing on business and saying, nah, Nah, Trump been the man. Trump always been real. Y'all the ones that's tripping. There are a few of us out here standing and supporting for what's right and standing on business because why? We see the possibility of what could happen if this woman gets in office. Now, of course, God is the one who raises and the one who rids. We know that. We know that. But God is also the one who works and uses means to accomplish his purposes. The same God that used the Jews in the Roman government to crucify the Messiah is the same God that uses people to put others in office and take them out. Same God. That's Bible. And I'm encouraging all of you to start reading yours. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 19 to 20. For you, Paul is responding to the Corinthians who are being played with by the false teachers. For you, being so wise, tolerate the foolish gladly. For you tolerate it if anyone enslaves you, anyone devours you, anyone takes advantage of you, anyone exalts himself, anyone hits you in the face. You think you are so wise. You think you are so smart. But you enjoy putting up with fools. You put up with it when someone enslaves you, takes everything you have, and calls it tax credit, takes advantage of you, takes control of everything and slaps you in the face, insults you. A slap in the face is the highest form of disrespect. It's right up there with spitting in your face. If a man slaps another man, they're showing you that you ain't nothing. A man spit in your face, they're showing you ain't nothing. How long are you going to let the Democrat Party slap and spit in your face? Black man, black people, black Christians, Americans. How long? She mocks our Lord, and you still gonna vote for this heifer? She disrespects our God, and you still gonna go to the poll and support her? And she's gonna take away and trying to take away our right of free speech and our right to assemble? You still gonna support this woman? This Jezebel? This wicked, godless woman? Who has publicly disrespected your Lord and mine. And you ain't gonna say nothing. Now you ain't gonna say nothing. You ain't gonna do nothing. Jesus says in John 13:13, you call me teacher and Lord. And you are right. For so I am. You call me teacher and Lord. And you are right. Because that's what I am. Or that's who I am. I'm a teacher. I'm teacher of teachers and Lord of lords. I'm the Lord. This is what Jesus said. But it's coming today. See, Kamala's laughing now, but she ain't going to laugh later. Have this attitude in you, Philippians chapter 2, verse 5. Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to or something to be grasped. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He emptied himself, taking the form of a bondservant. He took a humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. Verse 8. Being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. Died a criminal's death on the cross. Therefore, God elevated him to the place of highest honor and gave him the name above all other names. For this reason, God highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name which is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee, yours too, Kamala. I know you was using your knees when you was with Willie, but now your knees are going to be bowing down to the sovereign God of the universe. Yeah, you was using your knees and bowing down to get what you want here on earth. But you're going to be bowing down one day before the one you mocked and jeered. And you're going to confess. You didn't confess it now, but you're going to confess it later. That at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth. And that every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father. Oh yeah, you're going to bow. You're going to bow. You're going to bow. It ain't going to be to serve Willie this time. It's going to be to stand and account for your sin, Kamala. I'm done. Please like the video. Please share the video. If you'd like to support the ministry, you can do so. Click the donation links below. Please do not use the super chat for obvious reasons, because super chat does not expedite the gifts that you send in the manner that you send it until the following month. But you can use the links below, and as you see tickered across the screen as well too. And we do appreciate it. Thank you so much for your support, and also for the Love, Life, and Marriage channel as well too. Again, the BCB store. You can go to the link, click the link below. You can shop till you drop there and choose the items and merchandise at your disposal, at your leisure. Again, tomorrow we will be going to the polls for early voting. I would encourage you to do that as well. For those of you who are able to do it, I would encourage you to make your voice heard. Make your voice heard. This is going to affect all of us. All of us. As a 2A Second Amendment advocate, I don't want anybody to tell me how many guns and how much I can defend myself, or where I can go with what I have armed myself with, or how I can protect myself. I don't need the government telling me how I can protect myself. They don't have that authority. But see, depending on what state you live in, they do. Simple things like that. I don't need the government to tell me how to educate my children, let alone how to rear and raise my children. But depending on where you live, the government has that control. Why? Because of policies. Again, God works and uses means to accomplish his righteous purposes. What are we doing with these opportunities? Everybody doesn't have it. And God is going to hold us accountable for what we do and don't do. Commission and omission. Delano, thank you, brother, for this educational live stream. Once again, prayerfully enough people will wake up and not fall asleep at the spiritual wheel again. Amen, brother. Amen. 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 Well, anyway, that's all I wanted to say. That is my time, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you. Again, please be praying for Sister Bevelyn Williams. Pray for those who are still affected by the hurricanes. Pray for Florida, West Virginia, areas, and all those affected by these hurricanes that have occurred. And again, you know, we need to make sure that we understand where these are the days that we're living in. And I hope and pray to God that we take an account of our own selves and understand that God has not left us here on this planet to just think about us, but to also apply the second greatest commandment, which is to love our neighbor as ourselves. When we're gone off the scene, our children are still going to be left here, should the Lord tarry. What are we leaving them? What are we leaving them? What are we now passing on to them as an inheritance if we're not doing our part to make sure that our children are protected and their families and our lineage and our legacies to the glory of God? So anyway, thank you all so much. I will keep you all posted when the next video drops. I am working on some other things, and I'll keep you abreast as things progress as well too. So that is my time. I do thank you all so much for yours. Y'all know the drill. Whatever you do all to the glory of God. God bless.
Thank you for sharing this night. God bless you. Good night.
It's time to say goodbye for now.
It's over, ladies and gentlemen.
Mama, I love you. P.O.P. All the time. Right, these all good pimps, boy, baby.
All lies will be exposed. That's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way, know why they take it the wrong way. The truth is the light.
Please wake up.